Hello friends and welcome to today's video. Do you like books that are free or books that are so cheap that they're almost free? Well, libraries exist and they're a fantastic way to borrow books for free, and if you're a reader, you should go and support your local library. However, if you're someone who actually loves to have books on your shelves like little trophies, and you like to buy books but don't want to spend too much money on them, used book shopping can be a fantastic way to do just that, because let's be honest, new books are expensive these days. In today's video, I really wanted to share with you some of the places where I really like to buy used books. I feel like not all of them are quite straightforward. Not a lot of people know about some of these types of events and sales, so I really wanted to share them with you so that you can get your next read at a very affordable price. The first type of event/sale that I want to talk to you about today is actually the one that I was made aware of very recently. However, ever since I found out about these types of sales and have been to multiple ones, I have been loving them so much, and I have been going to so many, and those are estate sales. If you don't know this concept, it's basically when the entire contents of the house need to be sold relatively fast. So you just go inside someone's house and you can buy anything and everything that you see. Think of it as an open house, but instead of the actual house being sold, it's all of its contents that are for sale. You can find ads for estate sales on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and also other websites that are local to your area. And also always they show some pictures of the sale on the advertisement, so you can determine whether the sale is actually going to have any books. Because let's be honest, not everyone is a reader, so it is not guaranteed that every single sale is going to have books, but trust me, a lot of them do. And when they do have books, the deals are amazing. In fact, recently I went on a trip to Southern California. I was in and around LA, and I managed to go to quite a few estate sales, which was so much fun. So let me show you how it went. One of the best things about estate sales is the fact that everything needs to be sold really fast, so people almost always are willing to bargain. And if you buy multiple books, let's say you grab a whole bag or a box of books, you'll be able to negotiate a pretty sweet deal for your reads, which is very exciting. And for me personally, just the experience alone of going to someone's house and going through their stuff was so incredibly fun, because there are so many interesting, creepy, questionable, but also fun and unique things that you can find at someone's place. Like, for example, some issues of LA Times from 1930s, handmade plane models, vintage car magazines, and just so much more. I'm just really noisy, I guess, but for me it was so much fun to see how other people live, try to piece the puzzles of their personality together through their things, try to determine what were their hobbies or what they did for work, and I found the entire experience just a lot of fun. And I highly recommend that you go to an estate sale, if not for very cheap books, at least for the entertainment value. Another fantastic place where you can find a lot of affordable reads are thrift stores. I feel like a lot of people associate thrift stores with clothing, which is fair. However, not a lot of people know that there are actually very big book sections in pretty much every single thrift store out there, and you can find some incredible reads for a very good price. Again, when I was in LA, I was very curious to see what kind of books I could find in the thrift stores in the area, and also I really wanted to see how the selection of books in big chain thrift stores would compare to a smaller local one. So I went to a couple to see what kind of books I will be able to find there. I just came out of Goodwill. Actually, it was really great. They had a really big shelf full of books. There was quite a bit of variety, obviously, like you have a little bit of everything, but I actually found quite a few good options. There was Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Also, I saw Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which I actually considered buying, but the books there ranged between 99 cents and then somewhere $1.99, which I feel like for a thrift store, $1.99 is a little bit too high. And that edition of Rebecca was the Netflix adaptation cover, and it was $1.99, so I felt like it's just not really a great deal for this specific book, but there were definitely quite a few good options. Now I'm going to go to a couple of smaller local thrift stores and see if the selection there is better or worse, and just check out what we can find there. Hello everyone, so I am back from a couple local thrift stores, and honestly it was such a good trip. I didn't end up buying anything for myself, but thrift stores are an amazing way to find some used books. I think there's definitely a little bit of trial and error. You really need to find those that really have good selection of books, because not all of the stores that I went to today had big book inventory. However, there was one last one that had so many books. It was kind of really disorganized, but I thought that it made it even more fun because I really had to dig through some of the boxes in order to see what kind of books they have there, and all of their books were $1 to $2, which I feel like is a very fair price for used books. So yeah, overall thrift stores are an amazing way to find some secondhand books. They're going to be affordable, not everywhere though. A couple of stores I went to, the books were $5 to $6, which I feel like is way too much for a secondhand book. But if you find a good local thrift store that has a decent selection of books, I feel like it is an amazing way to buy some secondhand books. Because also the good thing about thrift stores is that they're very accessible. Wherever you are in the world, you're going to have a thrift store somewhere nearby. They're just everywhere. And also their inventory changes all of the time depending on when they get donations. So you can go, let's say, every other week, and you will definitely find new books in the store. So I feel like thrift stores are amazing for their accessibility, for how many there are and how many you can pick from. However, prices are not always the best for secondhand books in thrift stores. It depends on where you are, and it depends on finding the thrift store that has really great pricing. And something else that I really love about thrift stores is that you can find so many random things there, literally just so much stuff that is just really fun to look at and to browse through, not necessarily to buy maybe. Anyways, thrift stores are an amazing option. Now let's move on to the next place where you can find some great secondhand books. Another, a lot more obvious place where you can find some used books are used book sales or library sales. If you're in North America, I highly recommend using a website called Book Sale Finder. It does look a little sketchy, but I have been able to find so many amazing book sales through that website, and every single time that I went to one of the sales that was advertised on that website, I have had such a great time. They never disappoint, so I highly recommend checking it out. If you're in Europe or any other part of the world and you know of other resources like this where you can find some used book sales or library sales, please comment them down below, because it would be great if we can all share our knowledge of used book sales so that we can all enjoy them. But yes, I highly recommend going to used book sales. I feel like they don't happen that often, and that's what makes them so special, because when you go to one, it's like an event that you look forward to. And I have had amazing experience going to some used book sales. In fact, I made a couple of videos in the past where I went to a few used book sales, and they were always such a great time. I'm going to link the videos down below if you're interested in checking them out. And when I was on my trip, I also managed to find a library sale, and let me tell you, it was so much fun. It was a local library, and it was a little bit smaller than other used book sales that I went to in the past. However, it just felt so cozy. All the staff there were so nice. The selection of fiction and non-fiction was great. In particular, I really loved their selection of vintage cookbooks. I really wanted to grab a few. However, I just had very limited space in my carry-on, so I couldn't buy any of them. But I thought that this sale was such a great, very well organized type of event. And anytime that you go to any type of used book sale, they always give you a bookmark as a gift, which is very cute. And actually, I did buy one book on that sale. I wasn't planning on, but then if you have been on this channel for any time, you might have heard me say that I don't really typically read a lot of nonfiction, but the nonfiction that I really like is about filmmaking. That's just a subject that I really enjoy, and I love reading about it. And so when I went to the library sale, I found this book, which is Apocalypse on the Set: 9 Disastrous Film Productions by Ben Taylor. So this book basically consists of 9 chapters of 9 different film productions that went terribly wrong, and I thought the concept of it was very interesting, so I decided to pick it up. And also, seeing that it was a trip to LA and Hollywood being the center of Western media, I thought it would be really fun to have this book kind of like a souvenir from my trip to LA. So yeah, I decided to pick it up. I'm very excited to read it sometime soon. I think it could be such a fun, interesting read, so I'm very excited about it. There are also other types of sales or events where you can find some used books that are a lot more local. For example, garage sales, which, if you don't know, is basically when people sell whatever they don't need anymore. You could find books there, however, it is not guaranteed. In that same vein, there are also church sales. I have personally never been to one, but I have heard that you can find some great used books at church sales. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the books that you're going to find at a church sale are going to be religious texts. It's just going to be anything that is donated to the church. So it can also be just regular fiction or non-fiction books that people donate. And another place where you can find some used books are flea markets. I do think that flea markets tend to carry more antique books and coffee table books rather than just regular books for reading fiction or non-fiction. But if that's something that you're looking for, you might be able to find some really great options at flea markets as well. Then there are, of course, used bookstores, so shops that carry only used books. There are those that do both new books and used ones, and there are those that only specialize in secondhand books. And I love going to those so much because they're always so cozy, and it is such a rewarding, fun experience going through their collection. Their inventory gets refreshed quite a lot, so you won't be able to find something new even if you go to the same place multiple times. Used bookstores would normally have prices that are slightly higher than used book sales, library sales, or thrift stores, but they're still very affordable, and it is such a fun activity to try. I highly recommend going to a local used bookstore. Also, a tip for you is that usually libraries have a small bookshop attached to them, and most of the time those bookstores actually carry only used books, so that is another great way how you can support your library or a small local business that owns this little bookstore, and you can most definitely find some great reads there. I have quite a lot of books on my shelves that are from used bookstores, and I really love them, and I love experience going to them, so I highly recommend you giving them a try as well. So as you can see, there are plenty of places where you can buy really cheap books if you know where to look, and buying pre-loved books can be such a rewarding, sustainable way of shopping for books for your shelves while at the same time supporting your local community or library or a small business. And the best part is that secondhand book shopping is a hobby and activity in its own, because you never know what you're going to be able to find. It almost feels like a treasure hunt, but when you find that book that you have been wanting to read for so long and it costs like $1, it is the best feeling ever. So I really wish for all of you to experience that. I really hope that you give used book shopping a try. If you know any other sites or resources where you can find information about used book sales, or maybe some other places where you can find pre-loved books, please leave them down below in the comments. I really hope that this video was helpful and that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. I really hope that you have a lovely day, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye!